Hey guys, this is Gaijin Hunter. Did you know that there's an actual world map for the universe of Monster Hunter? That's right, there is. What you're looking at now is from the official encyclopedia for Monster Hunter, which was published in Japan, and they give us lots of notes on where things are located. Not everything, but we have enough clues between this, images from the game, and dialogue to really piece together a cohesive picture. In this video, I'm going to show you a map that I recreated using both information that we know to be true and also information we can assume to be true. I'll be very clear on which is which as we go through the map, but I wanted to share it with you. Capcom's been really consistent over the last 15 or so years. The only exception is this map here, which I have to assume is just a special one because it doesn't quite line up with the world map that we even see in the same game, which is right here. Those sort of river-like things are actually tiers. It's actually pieced together, and you can see that the map indeed lines up with everything else that they've had in the past. And here is the world map that I recreated. I did this using a free website called Incarnate, which I'll put a link for in the description down below, but it allowed me to map out the land, put in some different coloring and cool stuff like that. So let's step through this thing one by one and I'll tell you what is an assumption and what is something we know for a fact. Okay, heading up to the upper left, this area is really well mapped out in the encyclopedia. This is pretty much first generation Monster Hunter, so we know for sure this is where Kokoto is. This is the first village of the first Monster Hunter game. And we know for sure that Minigard is over there on the left. This was the online port town, which unfortunately now that the servers are down is no longer accessible. We know for sure that we fought Lao Shanlong up in these mountains above Kokoto village, and we also know for sure that this is where Castle Schrade is located, the left side of it being sort of like the warmer atmosphere and the right hand side being sort of the colder atmosphere. Head down to the desert area. I want to point out that Dundorma we know for sure is located here. This obviously is a very important location. I think both in Monster Hunter DOS and Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, obviously we got to go to this village. Definitely a lot of lore which you can have fun looking up on like sort of like the Monster Hunter Wikia and places like that. Now it's a really quick time to swing up here and show you where Poke Village is. This is something that we know for fact. This of course is everyone's favorite village from the second generation of Monster Hunter. And right above it obviously is the sort of cold, snowy mountains where we fought stuff like Tigrex, Blagonga, and Gamut as well. Now let's swing down to the desert region of the world. Now, if you start to notice that the world map here mimics the world map on planet Earth. So this is all assumptions, but let's just say like Castle Schrade in the old medieval architecture is Europe. Down below here would be Africa. Over to the right where we were in Poke would be something like Siberia. We start to see a lot of those influences in the actual designs of like the clothing and the culture of these regions as well, which I find personally very interesting. But anyways, let's get back to the map, shall we? So we know for sure that this is the whole desert area. We know that this is where we fought Gen Moran, which is over in this big desert. We know this is where Diablos, Cephadrome, the Senators, and stuff like that are all located. We also know for sure that Lokalak, which is down below here, which is the online hub of Monster Hunter Tri, is definitely located here. And we know up above on this region is Port Tanzia, which is the online port of Monster Hunter Tri G. And this actually brings us to the first part where we're going to have to make some assumptions, which is we don't actually know for sure on the map where Moga Village is located, but there's tons of hints which tells us that it's here in the middle of the world on these islands in sort of the ocean. Like it's pretty obvious. We know that the guild sweetheart goes from here back and forth to Lokalak, and she actually returned to her home village of Moga after she heard that there was trouble going on there. We have obvious access to Port Tanzia. And there's lots of reason to believe that Dia Morales and its area of sort of the ocean next to the volcano is right up there as well. The reason why I put Moga on the larger island on the left and not that smaller one up above is that we know that Moga is also connected to the deserted island, which is that free hunt area in Monster Hunter Tri, so I'm assuming that this area is pretty large, and this gives it more easier access to get to Lokalak. And from here we'll actually jump all the way to Generations, which is the village of Burna. There is no hint at all of where Burna is actually located. So this is a complete assumption, but we know that we have these islands in the Great Ocean. We know that Burna is an island that they can't use boats to get around, which explains why they aren't going to Lokalak or Moga or any place like that, but that the water on these outskirted islands is incredibly rough, and that is why they need to use airships to get around. This would explain if the whole island there of Burna was a little bit higher, that the ocean around it would be rough because it's just where it's located in the world. We can even assume that the Valstrax Island is right up there on the upper right, which would make a lot of sense. So this just really all comes together. They did say that the Jurassic area, which is where Glavenus, Great Macau, and in the depths of it is where Nakarkos is located. We know that that's an island as well that takes a day by airship from Burna to get to. So this definitely would line up very well because we know that area on the bottom right there, which is called the region of Aya. We know for sure from the encyclopedias that we've never actually been to this place in the world yet, so the Jurassic Island can't be there. And we already know everything else around this area, so it makes sense that this is where Burna is. My last bit of evidence and why I put Burna here is thinking about two different things. One, when your ship crashed in Monster Hunter 4, you ended up on a remote island called Chico Sands, which would be over on this right hand side. I don't know whether it's the first or second peninsula, it's just somewhere off this area. And we also can assume that Nakarkos is not going to be hunting monsters in the area where Dire Morales is. Considering all the different type of prehistoric monsters around this area, putting it somewhere near the volcano makes a whole lot of sense. Speaking of Volcano, because it is the center of the world here, so to say, I definitely want to explain all the things that we know and we think we know about this area. The thing we know for sure is that this peninsula area is the volcanic region. So we know like the old volcano and the other volcano maps are definitely located here. And of course, we also know for sure that at the depths of these volcanoes is where Alatreon, at least in 3rd generation, is located. The assumption here is the town of Hearth. We know for sure that it's at the base of the volcano, but we're not sure which side of the volcano it's on. But considering that we know for a fact that the right-hand side over here is like all the forest and wetlands, it makes sense also watching that cutscene from Monster Hunter 4 when they're traveling to it, that Hearth would be over here on the right-hand side. It would line up everything really good, but I just want to make sure that it's clear. I'm not sure exactly where at the base of the mountain that it's located. Val Harbor is also an unknown, but considering the fact that it has to be in a nice secluded area, it's got to have pathways to tons of different villages, whether it's getting to Dundorma, which we know that people travel between these two areas, and we know that although Yukumo is up in the mountains, so you want to go by airship, we do know that it's travelable by Val Harbor, so it's pretty obvious that this is the area where it's located. And also we have this art. This is obviously very artistic and deformed and not meant really to be specific on location, but this gives us sort of an idea of how close or where something might be located from the middle there, which is Val Harbor, and Dundorma on the left. Okay, moving to the right-hand side of the island, we have Jumbo Village, which we know for sure. This is where it's located. This is from Monster Hunter DOS. We know that Chico Sands is underneath that sort of marsh area, sort of an island offside the coast. We're not sure if it's that larger bottom one or the smaller one on the right. That's kind of an unknown, but we do know that that's the general location of it. We know that this whole sort of part of the world is sort of like the forest and marshlands. So we know that Najarala, Deviljho, Ragi, Kongolala, we know that these monsters exist in this area. So while we know for sure Jumbo and Chico are here, we are going to have to assume the location of Yukumo Village. We know that people travel between Yukumo and Val Harbor, that Yukumo is way up in the mountains, so you generally want to take an airship to get there. So knowing that, and also knowing that the Misty Peaks would go really in line with forested areas with wood and stuff like that, it definitely seems that Yukumo is located somewhere around this location here. Then finally, before we move to the final area, on the right hand side is this sort of island that almost looks like Japan. It's like this half crescent shape. We know for sure, this is absolutely defined, that this is called the Shiki region, and this is where Cathar, that awesome village from Monster Hunter 4, we know that it's located here. This whole area is like way up high. It's a very high mountainous sort of island, so you need an airship to get here. But Cathar, and then obviously in the mountains behind it in the depths, is where we fought the Dalamadur. And after having to do some assumptions for Generation 3 and 4, it's kind of nice to say that we know for this final area that the tower, which is sort of like, the ancient civilization, old area where we fought stuff like Yamatsukami, the Gold, Rathian, Silver Rathalos, we know for sure that this is the area where the tower is located. So it's not on the main place where Castle Schrade is. It is most definitely here, and we can see that in the official map. It's marked and everything. Okay, so zoom in back out, we can see the overall map once again. Hopefully that was interesting for you. 1st generation, 2nd generation is pretty well defined. 3rd and 4th, there's lots of hints, but we don't have an official map for it. But hopefully we're able to piece this together in a way that makes a lot of sense. The New World, which is Monster Hunter World and Iceborne, is assumed to be that continent on the far left of the map, where you sort of take the boat all the way across the Great West Wyvern Sea, and I love the idea of, heading to the west. It's very, again, symbolic that this is the world map, and America, so to say, the New World, is, a place where tons of immigrants from other different places are coming by boat, and they're trying to make a new sort of village for themselves. So I think it makes total sense that that's where the New World would be. The area that we know that we have never explored is that bottom right one, which is the Aya region. There's lore inside of the game which states like, they've got their own hierarchy, they don't interact with other countries and stuff like that. So maybe that'll be, the location for a future Monster Hunter game. We'll have to see. Now, I'm not going to walk you through all of these, but this is where I assume the areas that we see, all the different, hunting maps, this would be the location of all of them based on the map that I created previously. Now, this is a work in progress, obviously. I think if we ever get more information in any future Monster Hunter games, like definitive clarification where Burna is, or Hearth, Yukumo, exactly which part of the continent is located and stuff like that. But as of today, which is September 5th, 2020, going off the information that we have available, this is my best attempt at making a world map. Either way, it's very interesting to think about and to look at, and I love the fact that it's all one combined world. I am super open to feedback, so let me know down in comments below if there's any information you have on where something may actually be located that's different than what's in this video, but definitely let me know that your source, give me a link or a name of the book or whatever. It has to be an official source. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and checking out the map, and until next time, happy hunting.